Hey, good morning. With this week's podcast, my name is John Gormley. I am the marketing coordinator for Coeus Consulting based in Phoenix, Arizona. We are a managed service provider, among other things. But thank you for making time today on this beautiful podcast, this beautiful Thursday morning here in the Arizona desert. As you can see from the title of the video coming in, we're going to be talking a lot about today about understanding the construction surge happening in Arizona, and obviously what's fueling the surge and what is the role of managed IT services for supporting this surge. One of the things that's very important as everyone follows in the press is that Arizona plays an extremely pivotal role in the geopolitics under semiconductors and chip manufacturing, car assembly, cars, manufacturing parts, and so on. So where does managed services kind of fit in all this? And that's some of the things that we're really going to touch very strongly and helping on today. But it's very fun to drive. I actually live in the northwest Tucson area of Oro Valley, and I drive up to Phoenix every Tuesday for work. And when you do look off into the distance on the I-10 and you look at all these things that are being built, you wonder what's going up there. A lot of it is, a lot of the chips, semiconductors, and, foundries and wafer and things like that. Factories being built by companies from overseas and also in the United States as well. But in association to that, you have to think about all the ecosystem companies that are building up their businesses in order to support the surge of all this construction and obviously the semiconductor, market that's growing as well. So let's dive into a little bit of the content today, and let's talk a little bit about, first and foremost, what really is the role that managed services plays, in today and tomorrow as Arizona continues to expand in factory manufacturing, constructions, and other forms of projects as well. So we're going to cover kind of, some basic things today, understanding what we call the Arizona surge, right? What exactly is going on and what really is driving the construction increase? Cost of downtime for these construction companies, suppliers, people that deliver construction materials to these construction sites, the cement trucks, the cement companies. What does downtime mean to them when they're working on a massive data center or an AI power station, or they're extending the water reservoir in order to have water to cool these data centers? What does downtime mean to them? And most importantly, we're talking about, how's most of these applications accessed? Well, obviously, majority of it's accessed in the cloud. Is it being done in a secure manner? Is the cloud always available? Is access to the cloud available? These are things that hinder the ability for people that are working on site in these construction facilities to continue to do work that they want to do as well. Our cybersecurity hackers paying attention to this? You better believe it. There's employee information, there's contract information, there's money, there's all the intellectual properties being built in these massive data centers and facilities. Obviously, hackers would love to not only get hold of it, but potentially they may also want to disrupt these operations as well. But the important part that really where managed services, I think, plays the most critical role is the ramping up and ramping down of services. So construction companies has landed a 3-year deal. They're working on a big facility out in Mesa or Gilbert or Chandler or further out to Santan, and they've got to ramp up. They've got to bring people out there. They've got to bring architects out there, their engineers out there, and they need IT. They need their desktops to be working, their laptops got to work, their tablets. They got to make sure there's no viruses or malware on their devices. And they have to make sure that their application, authentication or getting the apps is done in a very secure manner. At the same time, as their projects sort of kind of, come down on the 2.5 year period, they have to be able to turn down their services. So this, again, is a beautiful use case for how managed services plays a very strategic role. So let's dive into what the surge really means. $205 billion in semiconductor investment announced statewide. That's not millions, that is billions. In the state of Arizona, 50 billion active construction going on in 2025, 60 plus semiconductor expansions across Arizona, 39 new chip companies in the greater Phoenix area. That does not include the growth of construction companies, electrician companies, solar panel companies, architectural firms, legal firms, accounting firms, all these things that go to support the companies that are coming into the state in order to make this surge a reality. Is really another good value point of where managed IT has an extremely important role, and the ability to do 24/7 cybersecurity monitoring and security operations centers and help desk services, all that towards not only supporting the companies but supporting the ecosystem that is being built as a result of these companies in this search. So who are they? TMMC, obviously many people know who that is, the Taiwan company, $165 billion, 6 fabs planned in Phoenix, 12,000 plus employees, largest foreign investment in U.S. history here in Arizona. Intel, $20 billion operating 4 fabs within the Chandler area, continuous in construction, adding new packaging facilities, and Holla Vista with a $7 billion investment to increase the mixed campus use and so on. Now, again, if we're just talking about construction alone, that's a tremendous business opportunity and a technical opportunity for managed providers. But think about everybody else that's part of that ecosystem supply chain that needs the ability to turn on some IT services. They may only need it for a year. And like everything else, they've got to ramp it down, but they want it as more of an operational expense instead of a capital expense. Again, that's music to ears to most of us in the managed services, space. So downtime. Now, we talk about this all the time during Cybersecurity Month. We talk about this when ransomware hits. We talk about when people are stealing intellectual property, or people forget their passwords, or people spill coffee on their favorite laptop. All these things result in downtime. So what does $14,000 mean per minute? So just take this in consideration for a moment. You're down for 1 minute, and it's already cost your business in the middle of a big construction project, or you're building a chip plant, or you're delivering concrete, and suddenly you can't do any of that because you can't print out the work order, you can't do the digital receipts, or you can't look at the digital manifest on the phone because the back-end system has now gone down, right? For every minute, that potentially costs you $14,000, right? 31% of network failures happen because of various things: conditions, poor connectivity, bad choice of carrier, going with some, nobody versus going with Verizon or AT&T or somebody, right? Human error. People make mistakes, right? It happens. People forget their passwords. They get frustrated. They throw their laptop down. They drop it. Things like that happen. That also leads to downtime. Ransomware, of course, ransomware is going to be everywhere. Hackers will be sending email phishing attacks. They're going to put malware in there. They're construction invoice, click here. Pay now or else. Wait a minute, what do you mean pay now? It goes back to that business email compromise stuff as well. So these are all things that just on the surface have a big impact on the ability for people to function, right? Now, let's talk about what it means to work in the construction or work in this space, taking advantage of this surge, right? It's the ability that whatever people do in the office, 100% of what they do in the office, they have to do in the field, right? Accessing information, accessing design drawings, the modeling, accessing the CAD files, making sure that they, like example, using Ring Central, they need to access communications at all time. People call one number and they find them in the field on their laptop. It rings up, a video comes up, they can communicate, right? But number 4 is the one that really, is something that people totally don't get, is automated backups. Every moment of every day on every construction project, there's progress in the project itself. The project plans change, project management changes, all this stuff changes. And yet people go in and they realize that there's fresh data that needs to be backed up. So the next day, if there's an outage, they can at least refer back to yesterday's changes to their designs or invoices or their contracts and so on. But without continuous automated backing up to support activities in the field, that in result could lead to definitely project delays. It could payment delays. It could result in somebody literally being kicked off the job because they are not keeping track of keeping the information safe and secure, as well. Now, security beyond the fence, extremely important. Right? What is being generated in a construction surge or a building surge, and what intellectual property? Now, if any of you have ever had a chance, I've had the chance at one point in life to go inside these super big data centers being built for AI, and actually been a couple of them in my time. And when you actually go in and see how massive these facilities are, and you see how the cabling is done, or you see how the generator system works, or how the backup diesel works, and you're just kind of going, wow, that's a lot of infrastructure for just applications. Well, these applications are now becoming life, they're part of life. AI for healthcare, or AI for finance, or AI for construction becomes absolutely a priority. But what's being generated as well to that is intellectual property being created within these applications that are basically somebody's secret sauce. Of course, they need to be encrypted. Is the encryption working? Right? Or do the hackers get in and have the ability to steal the design of a data center to use it potentially somewhere else, right? Vendor contracting data. How much are people getting paid, right? Are they getting paid? Of course, email phishing and business email compromise are extremely common, right? Somebody sends an email that says, oh, hey, you forgot to pay this invoice, or oh, wait a minute, we didn't get a copy of the last design. Could you, email it over to us? And people are busy. They're on their phones, driving between jobs. Of course, yeah, let me click and, send it over. That also is absolute possible breach, of security. Payroll data, of course, construction companies, a lot of times they work in cash. Most of the time they're working 1099s. They're just doing bank transfers. This, again, accessing this ability to access this transaction capability is absolutely key to hackers. It's simple money, it's easy pickings, it's low-hanging fruit, but having the ability to make sure that's secure and the information is secure and people's private information is secure is also very vital as well. And of course, trying to block ransomware. Ransomware, to be honest, is not something you can block 100%, but you can prevent the byproduct of ransomware going off. So somebody clicks on malware and you have the right email security system powered by AI, having the ability to see that action and go, okay, I'm going to block this. I may not have picked it up on the way in because it looked a little suspicious, but the actions that happen as a result of clicking on email, absolutely, I'm definitely all over that as well, right? Now, scaling up and scaling down, I mentioned this earlier as being really the prime pickings for managed IT services, right? Organizations say, we're about to go on this contract, we're about to be on site for the next 12 to 18 months. We need IT services. We need our workstations. We need the ability for our teams to have somebody that can just be a phone call away of providing a reboot of a password, to making sure that there's bandwidth, to make sure that the data is being stored in the cloud properly, to making sure that we're staying current with our Microsoft licenses. These are all managed IT services that we provide as Coeus Consulting, right? Scaling down is the reverse of opposite of this. They're now winding down from their project. They don't need as many laptops anymore. They don't need as many printers. They don't need access to as much information. But we need to make sure this information is being backed up and archived for long term, especially if there's any future lawsuits as well. Again, another value of managed services within the space as well. So when we talk about our advantages, Coeus Consulting's advantage that we bring to obviously these companies that are in the surge, number one is we help them obviously achieve zero downtime, right? We like making sure that the workstations are being patched properly, making sure that the AV stays current, that the anti-malware is being done, that all their emails are going through advanced email security, right? We also make sure that we're monitoring their security 24/7. Right? Not just 9 to 5 when they're on the concerns. 24 hours a day, 365 days, we're monitoring and we're preventing attacks from coming into their environment. We're also making sure that whatever cloud that they use, that we ensure that there's the proper cloud security is in place, authentication of the cloud, and backup and replication of data is also being done simultaneously. And of course, growth. The one thing that's really great about managed services, especially the stuff that we provide, is the ability to say, I need to scale up. I went from 10 employees at the beginning of a contract working on a construction site in Mesa and whatever. I now need to ramp up to 2,000. Can you guys scale with me? And can I only pay based on how much I scale? Yes. Consumption-based modeling. Absolutely. We're all into that as well. Compliance, everybody has some compliance framework. You can't avoid it. You can't say, oh, I'm not responsible for that. Yeah. Wrong. You are responsible. There is some form of, especially here in Arizona, and dealing with government, there is a CMMC component. There's insurance companies, cyber insurance demands that you make sure that you have all the right compliance checkboxes done and completed and provable. This again is where managed services and our compliance advisory services, comes into place. And of course, dedicated support. Having Arizona-based engineers, the ability to support our local businesses here in Arizona is one of the prides of Coeus Consulting as well. Okay, so end of the day, the intersection between steel, sand, and silicon is exactly where managed IT and the ability to help you build out your IT blueprint and leverage us as your trusted partner for managed services as well. So if you're interested in knowing more, drop a line on sales@coe.us or go to our website at coe.us and hit contact us. Or we do have a button there that says schedule a 30-minute call with our consultants that can be able to walk you through all the various different managed services capabilities that we can bring to you and your organization. But I guess in closing, as we kind of finish out today's podcast today, the surge in Arizona is a beautiful thing. I'm a resident of Arizona. I was a resident in another state that will go nameless, California. But the nice thing about living here, which is so beautiful, is the people are great. The jobs are great. You got to put up with the weather and the rattlesnakes and all the other fun stuff. But multiply to see the growth of the state is absolutely a beautiful thing to see. And to be in the IT space, the managed IT space like we are, it's great to watch. It's great to talk to good new prospects and customers. We enjoy it. We love it. We're one of the top MSPs in the area. We love supporting SMB businesses, particularly in construction, healthcare, and automotive. So if you have any questions, please drop us a line at coe.us. And I hope that you enjoyed today's podcast. So thank you again. My name is John Gormley. I am the marketing coordinator for Coeus Consulting based in Phoenix, Arizona. I wish you a very pleasant week and a wonderful weekend. I'll see you on next week for next week's podcast. Take care.